Hello my lovelies, welcome back to my channel. This is your girl Angel from Simply Angel Tia. In this video I'm going to show you guys how to crochet this mid-length skirt, and it's very textured, so this is something that will be a little bit fun to do and to see all of this pattern come together this way. I'm going to also do a top using the same stitch. It may not be in the color that the skirt is. It will probably most likely be in a different color, but I'm going to show you guys how to do like a crop top as well using this stitch here. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay my lovelies, so before we get this tutorial started, I'm going to show you all the materials that I'm going to be using for this project. And as you can see here, I have the yarn. I have We Heart yarn by Hobby. This is a classic acrylic yarn, so it's 100% acrylic. This yarn is 50 grams for this one. I'll probably need 3 to 4 of these to accomplish this, and it's going to be different for you depending on the size that you're making. And I'm making this skirt in a small medium. Okay, and this color is color 40. It's a lightweight number 3, and recommended hook size is, it ranges from 4 to 4.5 millimeter crochet hook, or US 6 to 7. Okay, so this is the yarn we're using. For my crochet hook, I'm using a 4.25 millimeter crochet hook, which is similar to G6 US. I have my darning needle here. I have a scissors, and I have a tape measure that I don't quite need because I know my size by now. But for those of you who are following along and you don't know how to establish your size, you need a tape measure, because I'll be explaining how you get your size that way, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, my lovelies, so we're gonna go ahead and get started here. And as you can see, I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail here, and this tail is going to be to join the two sides of our waistband. And so you can leave it just a little bit, just estimate that it's gonna be about 3 inches that you need to join, so you don't need too much of yarn. So with that said, we're going to start by doing a slip knot so we can do our foundation chain. So slip knot, I do it like this for those of you who are not familiar. And of course you can do the slip knot however you usually do it. And now that I have my slip knot, I'm going to do a foundation chain of 15. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here's my foundation chain of 15, and we're gonna go ahead and get started with the first row. So we're going to, and this is the width, by the way, of the waistband. So this is gonna be the part of your skirt that pretty much lines up the top of the skirt. So this is, you can do this to be a little bit shorter than this, you could do it to be half of this, you could do it to be longer than this, depending on how wide you want your band for the skirt to be. Okay, so we're going to skip this stitch here, and in this stitch we're going to go in the back of it and do a single crochet stitch, just like so. And then we're going to move on to the next stitch next to it, and we're going to go to the back loop and do a single crochet stitch. And you're going to continue doing this until you get to the end of this row, and by the end of it you should have 14 stitches. And just so you know, this is the front of the chain here, this is the back. So it makes it simple to know what the back loop is. This is the back loop here. These lumps that you see in the back here, this is what we call the back loop of the foundation chain. So go ahead and do your single crochet stitches in the back of the chain into every single stitch, and then come back when you have reached the end. Okay, so I've completed the first row here of the single crochet stitches in the back of the foundation chain, and this is how that first row looks. And so what I'm going to show you next, which is the second row, is going to be the repeat row for this part of the project. So this is the width of your waistband here, so it would go like this along the top of your the skirt. Okay, so for this row we're going to start by doing a chain of 1 and turning, and then we're going to go to the very next stitch right after the chain 1, and we're going to do a single crochet stitch in the back loop of the chain of the stitches, so of the previous row. Okay, so you're going to go through and grab the back loop and do your single crochet stitch, and you're going to do this until you get to the end. And when you have the end, like the second last stitch is where you go through the back loop. And then for the final stitch, I do choose to go through both loops as opposed to just the back loop, but that's your choice. You could do it however you want, but as long as you do back loop single crochets for all the stitches except for the last one, or if you do go through the last one as well, then as long as you do the back loop single crochet stitches, it's going to create the design that we're looking for. So in this case here, I'm just approaching the end so I can show you how I do go through both loops for the final stitch. And for those of you here watching and you are a subscriber, have watched other videos of mine, you will know exactly that I do these all the time, and it's a preference, so it's not a must that you do the same. So just like that. So for that final stitch, I go through the both loops like that. So that's the end of row 2. Okay, then for row 3, I pretty much repeat row 2. For row 4, we repeat, and then we just continue to repeat this until you have the size that you need for your skirt. And I will quickly explain to you what I mean by that. So for the waistband, this is the most important part that you need to make sure you measure. And what you do, so let me just put this down and grab my measuring tape. So what you do to establish your size is you pretty much take a tape measure. I use in inches all the time. You can use whatever other measurements you need. If you need centimeters or meters, then that's up to you, but I use inches. So I measure the widest part of my hips. I don't need to measure it all the time. I know how wide my hips are by now. Unless I know I lost weight or gained weight, then I will remeasure. But usually the widest part of my hips is about 38. It may go to 40 depending on whether I want the skirt to be loose or the pants or whatever the bottom part of what I'm making is. It could go from 38 to 40. Sometimes maybe even comes down to 36 depending on the type of yarn I'm using, depending on the type of stitch I'm using. But regardless, I usually end up mostly doing 38 inches, which is the circumference of the widest part of my hip. Okay, so with that said, you're going to make these the waistband to be that size. So for example, mine is 38 inches. I'm going to keep measuring my waistband, and I'm going to keep stretching it to see if I get to the 38 inches. So the stretching part is very important, because if you don't stretch, it's just going to make it so that you make a really big and loose skirt that is not really your size, unless you're intentionally making it for someone else who is a larger size than you. Because I have wider hips, I typically wear small in the top part of my clothing, but for the bottoms, I tend to wear a medium or small to medium, because I have wider hips than what would typically be for a small person. Okay, so I'm going to repeat this pattern that we just did here until I get to my 38 inches when I fully stretch the band. And if it gets to that 38 inches, then I know I have reached what I need. And then we're going to come back to join the two sides of the waistband together and then start the rest of the project. Okay, so continue to work this and repeat it until you have your size. When you have that, come back and I will show you guys what to do next. Okay, see you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I have gone ahead and worked the band until I have my size. So as you can see here, it's quite long, and this is not even stretched, but if I really stretch it, look at how stretchy this is. It stretches to the size that I'm looking for, which is 38 inches. Okay, now this is more for the fitted, if you want your skirt to be fitted. If for some reason you want your skirt to be loose on purpose, then continue to make your band wider, because it's going to create a wider skirt in general. Don't worry so much if the waistband is going to fit, because you can easily fix that by doing a drawstring. You can do like a little strap that you can kind of tie the top of your skirt, and it will look just as beautiful. The most important thing is that you make something that fits you or the person you're making it for, especially in the section of the hips, because you don't want it to be too tight if they don't want it tight. So I have my 38 inches here. So we're going to fold our waistband a little bit like this. And just to, by the way, just to kind of elaborate on what I just said, the 38 inches is not my waist at all. My waist is about 26 inches. So I go from 26 inches to 38, okay, because my hips are much wider than my waist. So when I do wear this skirt, I will most likely have a drawstring to make sure that the waist size is going to be tighter. But the most important thing is going to be when I really stretch it, my hips are going to fit these here. So that is just to explain a little bit of what I mean by make sure you do this to be the size of the widest part of your hip, because you do want it to fit. If you're pulling your skirt up from the bottom, you want it to fit, and you don't want it to get stuck in your hips and you cannot pull it up any longer. Okay. All right, so shouldn't be doing that, but now we are at the moment where we're going to be joining these two sides of the waistband so we can work the rest of the skirt. So we're going to be joining it here in this section here, and then we're going to be working a skirt that way. Okay, so you can line these up however you want, but I usually just line it up like this so I can join it. And we left the string, remember we talked about leaving the string a little bit longer so we can use that to join the two sides. So this is where this comes in handy. And then of course you need your darning needle. I find it easy to use a darning needle as opposed to do single crochet or slip stitching here. If you do slip stitch, that's also not a big deal at all. So you can slip stitch your work here and join it. But I tend to just want to use the darning needle. I find that it makes it look very nice and it matches the stitches. It doesn't have a bump. Like I find that when I do slip stitches, there's going to be a little bit of a bump that is different from the stitches here. Okay. Again, that's a preference. I'm not saying that the other way is a wrong way at all. It's just my preference. All right. So now that I have my darning needle, I have the string in the darning needle, I'm going to join this section. And I will start by just going in the bottom here. It's not even, in this case here, it's just right below the first stitch. I'm going to go on this side and on the other side. And I'm going to pull and lock that section. And just to make sure it's even more secure, I'm going to do it one more in the exact same spot. That just kind of enforces this section and makes it a little bit secure so that it doesn't come apart when you do wear your skirt. And then in the very first stitch right after that, I'm going to just go through both loops again, and I'm going to pull. And then from here on, I am going to grab the inside loop on this side and the outside loop on the other side. Okay, so we have two loops on each stitch. There's a V section. I'm grabbing just one of the sides and the other side. So usually if I do the inside of this side, I do the outside of that on this other side. If I do the outside on this side, I do the inside on the opposite side. Okay, so I'm hoping again that this is making sense to you. So just pick the inside loop on closest to me, and then the outside loop when it goes to the one away from me, and I just continue to do this until I get to the end. Okay, so you guys do the same, and if you have a different way of joining your things like this, go ahead and use that technique. You don't have to use my technique. And when you get to the end here, come back to the video and I will go ahead and show you how to start the rest of the skirt. See you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I just continue to join these all the way to the end. So as you can see, I'm at the very end here. For this final stitch, I'm just going to go through both loops, and I'm going to grab both loops on the other side as well, and that will just seal that final stitch like that closed. Okay, so as you can see, this is where I joined the work here. It just looks like the gaps that are going between each of the stitches here. So with that done like that, I'm just going to remove the darning needle. I'm however going to leave this hanging here because it's going to be a guide for me to know where my row started and where my rows ends. Okay, because with this one it's not going to be very obvious because of the stitch that we're using. Now that I have that, I'm just going to do a chain one to start this first row, and I'm going to turn, and I'm going to go onto this other side, and on that very first stitch on the other side, I'm going to slip stitch. Okay, this just kind of reinforces this section here and closes that section down. Then I'm going to chain one. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to where we just turned it from, and I'm going to do half double crochet stitch in the very next stitch right after it, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to the next stitch, and I'm going to do a half double crochet, and then in the next stitch I'm going to do a half double crochet. And I'm saying stitches, but there's no actual stitches that are very visible for you to see here. But what I mean is when you do these single crochet stitches like this counts as this section that looks like a valley here that goes in counts as a stitch, and then the part that protrudes up here counts as a stitch. then in the valley is a stitch, and in this section here is a stitch, and in the valley is a stitch. So that is what I mean by in the next stitch. Okay, so you can now continue to work your half double crochets all around until you come back here. Okay, when you get back here, so you go around like this. When you come back here, come back to the video, and then I will show you the actual pattern that you need to repeat for the rest of the skirt. And then of course the length of the skirt is going to be up to you. Everybody's going to make it at the length that they want. You can make it into a mini skirt, you can make it into a long skirt, it's all up to you. But for now, go ahead and complete this part, and then I'll see you when you get back here. Okay, my lovelies, so I have gone ahead and completed the row of the half double crochet around here. So as you can see, this is just pretty much for me to establish actual stitches that I can work into when I start the next part of the project. So for those of you who may ask, why did I have to do a row of half double crochet? That's exactly why. I just want to establish like actual rows that I can work, or actual stitches like this that I can work into for the next part of the work. If you want to start the next row that I'm going to be doing without doing this row of half double crochet, you absolutely can. You just have to treat these, what I talked about, these parts here, you have to treat what the valley and the heels as your stitches. So that is how you would be counting when you go around. Okay, all right, now that we're here, this is again, like I said, this string is going to be our guide to show us where we end and start our stitches or our rows. So now that I'm here, I completed my half double crochet right in this stitch here. So now the next stitch is the chain one that we did. So I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch on top of that chain one to join this part or this side of the row to the other side, just like that. Okay, so now that I have joined this part here, I'm going to start the repeat row. Okay, so at this point I'm going to chain 2, and in that same stitch there I'm going to do 2 more half double crochets. The reason I'm saying 2 more is because the chain 2 counts as a double crochet, like that. So this is 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and then I'm going to skip that stitch next to it, and in the next one I'm going to do a single crochet. Then I'm going to skip this stitch here, and in the next stitch I'm going to do 3 double crochets. So I'm doing a cluster of double crochets in the same stitch. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so this is that cluster there, and it's going to create a shell like that. So these are shells. And then I'm going to skip this stitch, and in this stitch here I'm going to do a single crochet, skip this stitch here, and in the next stitch do 3 double crochets in the same stitch, or aka do a shell, or aka do 3 double crochets together. So just like that. Okay, and then again I'm going to skip this stitch, and in the next stitch I'm going to do a single crochet, and skip this stitch. In the next stitch I'm going to do a cluster of double crochets. Okay, so just to quickly stop here and explain, so as you can see, this is how that part looks, and this is pretty much what we're going to be working on for the rest of the skirt until you get the length that you're looking for. But for now, just repeat this until you come back to this beginning here. So just go around repeating exactly what we did, which is what we're doing is we're skipping a stitch. In the next stitch from that, we do a single crochet. Skip a stitch. In the next stitch from that, you do a cluster of double crochets, which is 3 double crochets together. Okay, like that. And so this is what you're repeating until you come back to the beginning of the row. Because we're working in a circle, it's going to be coming back to where we started this row. When you get there, come back to the video. I will show you how to transition and start the next row, and then from that point on I will pretty much have you guys repeat the rest of the project. Okay, so come back when you get back here. Okay, my lovely people, so again I have completed the row. So this is the row of the shells here, and as you can see I've reached back to where we started. And again, this is going to be my guide to see where the start of the row and the end of the row is. And I've done my cluster of the double crochets right there, as you can see. And now we're going to be skipping this here, okay, because we're skipping a stitch, and then in the next one we do a single crochet. So I'm going to go right into that stitch there and do a single crochet, just like that. And this pretty much at this point completes this row. But what I'm gonna go further and do is in the next stitch right here, I'm going to do a single crochet. Okay, so right, we're skipping this, and in this up here, we're going to do a single crochet. We're just gonna go ahead and grab that middle double crochet, actually a slip stitch on top of that. So then now you have your shells here. All right, so now that I have that, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch in the next stitch like this, because I want to get to the middle part. And now that I have the middle part to go into, I'm going to then now go and do another slip stitch into that. Okay, it brings me right to the middle. And then I'm going to do my chain of 3. Chain of 2. And then in that same stitch is where I'm going to do my cluster. So 1 and 2. And the chain 2 I did, it counts as a double crochet. Okay. And now that I have that, we have 1, 2, 3, the 3 double crochets from the previous row, which means I'm skipping this stitch. And the next stitch is the middle one. I'm going to do a single crochet on top of that, like that. Then I'm going to skip this stitch, and in the next stitch I'm going to do my cluster of double crochets. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so now we're just repeating what we did. And then again I'm going to skip this stitch, and in this stitch I'm going to do a single crochet. Then I skip this stitch, and in that stitch I do my double crochet 3 times in the same stitch. So as you can see, now we're just back to repeating what we're doing, except for this part here where you had a cluster of double crochets, you have a single crochet on top. And where you had the single crochet stitch from the previous row, you have a cluster of 3 double crochets. So you're pretty much alternating, and you're going to do that all throughout the rows here. So again, skip this stitch, and in this stitch, which again happened to be on top of the middle stitch, you're doing a single crochet, and then you're skipping the stitch that is next to it, and then you end up in the section where you had a single crochet previously, and then that's where you do your cluster of double crochets. Okay, so you do your shell, then you skip this stitch here, and in the next one you do your single crochet. You skip this stitch, and in the next, which happened to be a single crochet stitch from the previous row, you do your double crochet 3 times in that same stitch. Okay, so just to show you guys again, this is how that second row would look like. And it's just gonna pile up like that, and we're gonna continue to repeat this until we create the length of our skirt. Okay, so again, you can have it as a mini skirt, you can have it as a mid-length skirt, you can have it as a long skirt. For me, I'm going to work until I'm comfortable, because I freestyle these projects. I don't know how long I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep trying until I'm satisfied with the length, and then I'm gonna come back. Okay, so that is what we're gonna do from this point on. Repeat this until you have the length of the skirt. When I do establish my length, I will come back and show you guys what that looks like, and then we can kind of compare, you know what I mean, compare our work and see how it looks. And by compare, of course, you cannot, I cannot see yours, because I can't unless you follow me on Instagram, and then you can kind of post pictures of what you have completed there. But I would like to see your work anyway. So if you do finish any projects that you complete using my tutorials, it would be nice if you guys go to my Instagram. I always include the link in the description box below, and so that you guys can actually share your work and we can compare. And some of you have done great tutorials with my videos and have created pieces that are better than my own, so I'm very proud of everyone. Anyway, so go ahead and repeat this, and when you have your skirt completed, come back and we will finish it off together. See you guys in a bit. Okay, my lovelies, so I have reached the point where I pretty much finished the length of the skirt that I'm looking for. So as you can see here, I have about 20 inches from the beginning here to the bottom here. And I would like to stop here because it's just right above my knees, and that's the length for the skirt that I'm looking for. So of course, if you were shorter than this, then you would have stopped a lot further, a lot sooner. And if you wanted to make it longer, then you would have to crochet a little bit further. But for now, this is pretty much it here. So as you can see, this is where I ended the project right here. Not ended it yet because I'm going to be ending it with you, but it's why I stopped working on it. So I'm going to quickly show you why I stopped here. It's very important with this kind of project because we are not Working in a way that it's going to be very obvious where the beginning and the end is, and also because of this a little bit of a pattern here, it does make it a little bit difficult. So as you can see, this is where I left the hanging string from very early on in the project. And so this I said was going to be my guide to see where the row stops and it ends, okay? Or it starts and it ends. So as you can see, I pretty much, if I line it up here, it goes all the way to where I have my my last shell stitch here. So this is how I know I'm in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and finish my project in this very section here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, just because this undid itself, I'm going to go back and add that third double crochet in that same stitch there. So just like what we've been doing, just like that. And then what I'm going to do to end this is, for the next couple of stitches here, I'm just going to slip stitch, because this is going to just kind of close it off here. So because if we just stop it here, this final stitch here, shell stitch here, is just going to hang in the air, and that kind of looks weird. So we're going to just go to the next stitch and do a slip stitch there. And then we're going to go to the next stitch and do a slip stitch as well. And to the next stitch, we're going to do a slip stitch. And then finally in that valley area, we're going to do a slip stitch. Okay, so this is going to end this section nice and flat like that. And so I'm going to go ahead then and grab my scissors, which is this guy here, and I'm going to cut anywhere, just enough so I don't waste too much yarn. And then I'm going to pull this slip stitch all the way through, just like that. And then I'm going to eventually weave these in. So as you can see, this is how this particular section ends, and it has like these bumps that go all around, which is what the shell stitch creates. Okay, all right, so this is pretty much the end of the project here. I did about 45 rows right from where we started it here, where we connected it to the band of the skirt. So I did about 45 rows this way, and like I said, it's about 20 inches long. I will also go ahead and weave in this section here as well as this, and that's going to be the end of the project. One of another option that you guys can go for is, if you find this section a little bit loose for your waist, let's say you have a really tiny waist and wide hips, and you needed to make this section here way too wide to be able to come up your hips, then at this point you can do a drawstring for your skirt. And all you will need to do is just do a long chain that will go around, and then just weave it in the very top of the skirt here and make it go all around. And then of course you're going to end it wherever you want it to be, the front or the back or the side, depending on how you want your drawstring to tie up. You could either have it tie up at the front side of your skirt, at the back side of your skirt, or each of the sides. But that's going to be up to you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and weave my ends in. I'm going to go ahead and weave my ends in, and that will be the end of the project. Okay, so thank you so much again for joining me to the end of this video. This is something that I really love. This texture is very beautiful. And with that said, by the way, I'm going to do a top in this very stitch. It may not be in the exact same colors because I think I'm running low on this color. So I may do it in a different color, but I'm going to be using this exact same stitch. So don't go anywhere. In the next video is going to be that top. So you guys can make it as a set, or you can just make it as either the top or the bottom. Okay. All right. Thank you so much again, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.